All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, Chairman. Welcome to another great week of tone talking on the way to Tone Town. We got our snacks, coffee, maybe. We're on our way to Tone Town, and I think today we have a pretty fun topic. I think sometimes, as we talked about, we have a lot of options as guitarists and stuff. So there's an article that we recently saw for best pedalboards of 2023. So it'll be fun to go through and kind of chat through our pros and cons. What do we like and what we dislike, to kind of help give some clarity to someone that may be new. If you're well seasoned and you're thinking about switching up the boards, kind of go from there and get some insight and help you spend your money, because money is not limitless. We don't always have all the money in the world to buy every single pedal board. So it'll be fun to talk through everything and go from there. But you guys doing good this morning and this afternoon?
On this generic time of day, I am doing quite well, actually. I brought my own sheepskin throw for the Miata seat that I'm in today. So I'm feeling extra comfy, throwing back to the 70s, I believe. And I'm looking forward to talk about the different pedalboard surfaces, especially with the pedalboard surfaces on a serious note. My goal at the beginning of these things, if I can get a cackle out of Mason, it's going to be a good episode. So, but I think with the pedalboard surfaces, we all have so many different types of pedals. Like we have multiple overdrives, multiple potentially, delays, and Mason has a whole shelf full of Univibes, and Brian has 17 Gretches. But with a pedalboard surface, I think this is one of the things that you want to, not that you're not going to invest time into your delay and your reverb choice and overdrive choice, but you don't have 3 pedal boards necessarily. And so the average guitar player is going to want to have their one pedal board. And I think today's episode, especially from you, Brian, which is such a great choice for you being the host on this one, you see more boards in your shop than anyone. And so I know you'll have some really great insight. But yeah, all that to say, I'm looking forward to chatting. Mason, I'll throw it to you so you can chat about this day as well.
Yes, it's an ambiguous day as it's known, because we don't actually know what time zone you're in as you're listening to this. So we're just going to greet you ambiguously in the time zone that you live. But and I have to say, as an aside, I always thought you were more of like the beaded sort of like chair cover guy. If you're really
sensitive skin.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well.
What about Snuggie?
I gotta make my wife proud as well. My wife is from New Zealand, so I gotta stick with the sheepskin. Yeah,
I like it.
So, nevertheless, I'm excited. We've done several different videos and or I guess they're not interviews. We've done several different videos and podcasts on the topic of sort of these best of published by various magazines and internet publications that have a fair amount of traction. So it'll be interesting to see where we come down on some of these choices and picks. Often we've been disappointed. Maybe this will be the one that is the exception to the rule. But I'm looking forward to going into it. So I will turn it back over to Brian and we will start to investigate.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, before we jump into the article, I just want to say thank you to all that listen and that tune in on YouTube and Spotify. If you like our podcast, we would love for you guys to write a review on I think it's Apple Podcasts, Apple's podcast, and leave us a review. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. If you have a question, feel free to ask below and we'll chat with you about it. But yeah, please leave us a review. We'd love to see the interaction and keep going from there. So we'll jump into this article right here. So it's best pedal boards. If you're watching, you obviously can see this, but if you're listening, it's best pedal boards 2023 top choices boards for guitarists. So this is from musicradar.com. So we'll go down to the very first pick. I gotta be honest, this is a good old trusty. If you're familiar with this one, it's the Pedaltrain Classic Junior. What are you guys' initial thoughts on the Pedaltrain series? I know it's a staple, it's something that I see pretty often, but I also work with this board in a couple different ways. So I'm curious if your guys' approach, how often you build on these.
I just did one, 2 weeks ago, and it might have been a Classic Junior. It was a bit of a smaller one, I'll say that. It might have been one size up from the Classic Junior. And I feel like a pedal train is like getting an apple in your lunch as a kid. You know that you know that you should do it. You should have some experience. You're not going to really be all that disappointed, but you're also not going to be wowed by it either. And so I think the pedal train, it does what it does, and it does an okay job. There are some things I had to change. Even on the board I did a couple weeks ago, I posted about this on Instagram. I needed more space underneath, but the pedal trains don't have that much room underneath. So I ended up, designing and printing some 3D printed risers that I could then attach the rubber feet to give myself an extra half an inch of clearance. And then I was able to mount more stuff underneath. With other versions of a pedal train, other angled boards, like the mono ones we chatted about before on the show, there's a lot more room on their smaller sizes, so you don't need to modify anything. So that's probably my biggest con with the pedal train. The things I love about them, though, is they're super strong. They're very affordable. If you get the flight case for them, they are about as heavy as my car. They are so insanely heavy, the flight cases. So I'm not the biggest fan of that aspect. But the boards themselves, they're okay.
Yeah. How about you, Mason? Do you have much interaction with these?
Not a lot, but when I have used them, I kind of have taken the approach that I feel like has really been masterfully sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like they've mastered the pedal train, which is our friends over at Exact Tone Solutions. Yeah. They seem to have figured out or cracked the code. That was the word I was looking for on the pedal trains, where they basically put a laminate or plywood that's laminated on top of the pedal train. And so they are able to make use of the power supply living underneath. They're able to still bring up those cables up into the top row. So I think that they drill some holes maybe in strategic places so that the power supply cables can come up from beneath the pedal board up onto the top surface. And then they're able to make use of the entire surface area by way of having a laminate piece of plywood, or maybe it's just some sort of, thicker Phylon or ABS. I'm not sure what exactly it is. They're using
awkward gaps.
Yeah, but it basically gives them the full amount of surface area, so you're not having to put pedals in unusual positions so they don't fall between the slats. And it gives you sort of a more traditional pedal board assembly approach to it. You get to use the entirety of the space and the surface area of the pedal board. So I've kind of copied them in that regard when I've done one. And I think that it really, really helps quite a bit to maximize the space. You get the benefits of the power supply underneath. As we've talked about in some other videos, just as an aside, you just have to be very mindful in pedal trains in general of which power supply you use. Because if you're using a linear power supply underneath a pedal train, that's going to definitely put that magnetic field from the transformer in the field of your pedals. So you're going to have potentially a noise issue there. And so I highly recommend, if you are going to do a pedal train or put your power supply underneath, you do use a switch mode power supply as opposed to a linear power supply. And if you're wondering about what that is, you can check out our video on power supplies or our podcast that we did about choosing the right power supply.
And to be clear about that as well, for the power supply thing, that's not a pedal train specific thing. That's more about mounting your power supply underneath your pedals, which pedal train angle board, you put it underneath, the pedals are going to sit right on top. So just to clarify that that's not something inherent with pedal train. It's just angled boards in general.
Yeah. And I agree. I do the same approach that Exact Tone does with I guess it's like a Like it's the same flatboard material that Creation uses for their flatboards. They'll cut me out. I can't remember what the technical term is.
Polypropylene or something
like that, but it's like that hexagon flight panel on the bottom side and smooth on the top. I've used that in the past. I saw one guy, and this was definitely like he worked in a machine shop. He actually had bent out he had CNC'd out like kind of like a hot dog hole in certain like in the same channels as whatever the technical term is for the hole is, but in the same channels is where the open gaps were for the pedal train, but they were just smaller hot dog holes, and this piece just like laid on top, and it was like a super thin piece of aluminum or something, and it was really nice. It was super like bougie and over the top for like
you can get away with a pretty thin piece of metal because you have the support of the surface,
exactly.
I think the main challenge on those, especially with metal, is it's hard to do like a countersunk hole, and by that I mean that when you put in, let's say, the screw, that it sits flush with the metal.
Yeah.
And anytime you do countersinks, you have to have the drilling exact. Otherwise, it's going to shift. It's a little easier probably if you use like self-tapping metal screws that were like.
I just did rivets.
Topped.
Yeah.
What's that?
I did rivet.
I just did rivets. Because then the rivets are pretty flat.
Yeah, they're pretty flat, but you still have to be pretty right on it. I think that the just dome top, sheet metal screws are or self-tapping sheet metal screws might be the move, or that's what I would probably do. And I don't think it would be that consequential either way. You still have to like, I don't think it would be significant enough where you wouldn't be able to put Velcro somewhere that it was really needed for whatever the size of the screw is.
For sure.
Yeah, you could rivet it.
Another thing you could do is use Perspex. Do you call it Perspex in America? And you could backlight the bottom with LEDs, and it would all light up on the top. You
mean plexiglass?
Plexiglass. There we go. Yeah.
You call it what?
Perspex.
I mean, perspiration.
That's for the Aussies out there, I guess. I didn't realize that's not what we now call it here. Me being the we now in North America. I'm going to join in with you guys.
No, it's all good. So I have one reference photo real quick for a pedal train that I've done, and I kind of did a little bit of couple methods. Is
oh, nice.
Sorry, I'm getting up FaceTime at the exact same time as this that I'm trying to decline. So I did a couple different things. I had to raise up the feet, so I had to do taller feet like you, Grant, have done before. I did do those printed risers.
And how do you put those taller
but
feet
with
on?
this guy,
do you rivet those in too, or do you use screws?
I used machine screws on this one because the hole that is there with
it's pretty big.
Well, yeah, once you drill out the rivet, because the pedal train feet are attached with rivets. So once you drill that out, the hole's pretty big. So you have to use a larger machine like screw, and but the cool thing is because it's or it sinks down in there, and I've always done that just because it just makes it easier. But this one was really tedious because like I had to have like wooden blocks, like the same method that Grant and them used. Well, back in the day, you did, and this is how I started doing the wooden blocks that you would cut out and paint for pedal risers. Now you do the 3D printing. I did that same concept with the long line, but like I had to rivet just the pieces like to the board. Same with that R300 power supply from Strymon. Like I had to like get it just barely fit up through the notch to be able to actually like, so you could have all the connections on the backside. But depending on how you do it, like this board, it's a great board. It's solid. I'm 100% like down for. I've done plenty of these boards. I've owned plenty of these boards. It's definitely one of those staple items that you can't go wrong with. For like if you're starting out, and especially because sometimes they come with, I think most of the times they come with a case, which is really handy. Because who wants to just carry on their board? The reasons to avoid some power supplies are hard to fit under the Nano series, which
this is back to the
article.
Yes, I'm sorry. Back to the article. Sometimes I forget it's just a podcast too. So on the website, they have some reasons to buy, reasons to avoid. So the reasons to buy is space is yet small enough to carry, won't break the bank, comes with zip ties and Velcro, which is very true. So,
but the Velcro is also the biggest con. That stuff is garbage.
It's like it comes for it's for free, but when you start using and stuff, there's sometimes I've used the hook and loop stuff, and it's nothing like the other hook and loop on the market.
It is not good.
That would be avoid reason.
Yeah, I think the first two or the next one there, I think also is a pedal train. So I guess we could probably lump those together as far as
a Nano.
One thing I will say though, one pro about the pedal trains, if you want a bit more flexibility on the side mounting, because obviously there's just gaps there's no side panels, is Bestronix actually does some pretty cool little custom manufactured panels for pedal trains, which opens up a few more flexible options. It's nothing to do with pedal train. It's just something BTPA has done. But it's a cool idea, and it adds some, additional flexibility for that stuff if you don't have a junction box or patch bay.
They've also done, so they do those brackets for the side. They've also done which is very smart. They've done the rack panel bays that you can see on a rack, but they install it on the back side. So like this guy, first one, this entire front is open. If you're watching the Classic Junior, the whole front is open. It's not like I don't know if the older ones. Edge. Yeah, the audience facing edge. I don't know if this is a newer design or if the one with just the two power port holes is the newer design. I can never remember which came out first. That obviously wouldn't work, but this is really handy when you can have an entire patch bay, which power in, out, XLR, whatever you're running, you can just do it through the bay. So the first two are the pedal train and the Nano, which the Nano is great. I see a lot of Nano boards, a lot of quad cortex mini expression type pedals recently on I think it's the Nano or it's one of the, not the Nano, because the Nano is not deep enough for a QC. But anyway, moving on, there is the Smart Track S2 by Aclam. Aclam.
Not two clams.
Velcro free pedalboard solution.
So
this is I'm number 3 here.
This is number 3. What are you guys' thoughts? I have to ask you because I'm giving away my answer here. What are your thoughts on Velcro free pedalboards in general?
What?
Pro? Con? Anyone?
The thing about this, and I had years ago, they approached the store and they're like, hey, we'd love to sell you these. And I literally took one look at our manager and I gave him like the wife look that your wife gives you when you
are you the wife in this scenario?
In this situation, okay. I gave him that look. And and he was like, yeah, no, we definitely don't want to do anything with this. Just because those little tracker things, which it's an interesting idea. They just, how many pedals it takes up, that's a lot of space it starts to take up for having a Velcro free board. And nowadays, the more you can cram on, the better. Seems to seem.
I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild.
I haven't either.
Maybe there's a reason.
I think the thing with these boards, if you are not space conscious on your board, like maybe you just keep your board at home and you just want to pop 5 pedals down and the board could hold 8 or 10. Something like this might work for you. But as soon as you need to get specific with your layout, that's where these style boards, the Velcro free bracket system, whatever, there's a few different versions on the market. They really start to let you down and you can't get accurate on your layout. You basically have to go like, I think within an inch I can put this pedal down. But when me, Brian, or Mason are doing setups, you're literally moving things like, okay, 0.5 millimeter this way, this one can come 0.5 millimeter down, perfect. Like you can't do these general large movements. You have to get pretty specific.
We could never build a pro rig on this.
It would be tricky. It would be
totally infeasible.
I'm curious what the article has to say about the pros and cons, though. They probably don't bring any of that up. Hey,
reasons to buy.
Okay. Unlike those Velcro boards, you can't put pedals on those at all.
non-destructive mounting system, affordable starter kit. I'm curious how much it is.
That's not terrible.
$129, yeah, for their looks like their Pedaltrain junior.
But then you have to
size.
buy more brackets, I'm sure. Like it would come with a set amount of brackets.
It looks like it's changed its name.
Yeah.
Guido fixture blocks. Guido.
Yeah, they've definitely
chosen some good words. Hey,
Right?
Aclam, Guido.
Reasons to avoid cable runs have to go along top side of the board. There's nothing. Listen, people, let's just put the fact out there right now. There's nothing wrong with running cables on top. I'm just saying. I get people all the time. I had a client yesterday. I ran his flat board and everything, like a flat board, no holes or anything. So is there a way to cover all the cabling? And I'm like, no.
Oh no, like a cable blanket.
Yeah. He's like, you know how like back in the day they would put that stuff on wires? I'm like, goop? No. You know, if you really don't want to goop a board, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, oh, he was like an electronics engineer. So he's like, oh, I'm just curious if there's a way to hide the cables. And I was like, a different board? I was like, but
a modesty cloth. That's what we need.
Something. Oh my gosh.
Just put it over the whole board. Now the cables are gone.
Yeah, get a cloth, a cloth that has cutouts. So we'll do this. We'll send you cloths for someone with a laser. Yeah. We'll laser cut out whatever the pedal is, and it just goes over, and only the pedal is highlighted. But no, so this is their number 3. I'm like I said, I've never seen one in person ever. So it's an interesting choice. Their pick number 4 is the Gator G-Tour Large. I guess I'm gonna assume it's the Gator G-Tour just in general series.
Is the G-Tour a flat board? I can't really see on the.
So let me try to zoom. So it's a flat board with bigger chunky feet that sits in almost like a live-in case, but it's a deeper than normal live-in type
with some
case.
storage,
which is smart. Yep. I've had experience with this one a couple of times. Because it's a flat board, it was something I could work with. I will say the handles they're a little bit more, they're more robust for what is going on and whatnot. Just because if you've ever seen them, they are like bolted on there really tight. And it's not a bad thing. There's just
removable though.
They are removable, but you have a sizable hole, obviously, from the handle. So it can get a little interesting. Retractable handle and wheels for touring. This is their reasons to buy. Extremely rugged construction, carrying handles. Reasons to avoid. Might not fit as a carry-on. That is a very likely chance. That has the dimensions in centimeters.
Thank you,
Grant. That would be a good. This is you, Grant.
My people.
You can read this one. Grant. So, have you guys had any luck with these ones before?
I've not had this one.
I haven't worked on one, but one of my pals, Emily Wolf, she had built a rig on one.
Oh, she's awesome.
One time, and then brought it to me to move to another pedal board. And I don't know that the flight concern was such an issue, because I think that she had her own, like Sprinter van, and I think that they were doing their own. I think they were doing their own thing as far as the like the transport was concerned. But yeah, I think that it was just, I think she just said it was kind of, I don't know, like the dimensions weren't really that ideal for doing anything that was, I think it was kind of built more for like 2 standard size pedals depth. And you can even see in their picture, like that M9 is probably hanging off the back, so it's not, it wasn't like I don't know, I guess an ideal size for her to build on. And I think since we were doing the custom board anyway, it didn't make sense to try to, redo everything, or it didn't make sense to try to repurpose it. But I didn't have any objections to it. It looks like kind of like the standard, like, get off my case, ANS case company, Chris Craft, sort of thing. So, that's kind of like a very traditional old school kind of pedal board style. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think if I were forced to build on any of them so far, I probably would choose that one.
Yeah, it's very rugged. I will say, if you're looking for something of good quality, the board is it's a thicker. I don't know what the thickness of the board is. Where some of these other flat boards, it's very much like a get off my case type of board, and that was the first thing I noticed with their stuff is like it's solid. Like it doesn't warp. You get some boards when you start loading stuff up, and that's why I'm a huge fan of your boards, Mason, is because how they're designed, they don't warp. Obviously, it's because they're not wood. But some of these flat boards that you use, when you start putting stuff on it and you go and pick it up, or it like warps or dips or something, it can be kind of a pain. Before we move on to number 5, I'm going to throw it over to Mason to talk about a couple of our amazing sponsors that make this podcast possible.
Yes. I would like to speak to you first about our friends over at the Guitar Sanctuary. And if you know anything about Brian Omilion, you know that he's there at the Guitar Sanctuary at this very moment, just waiting for you to come to him with all of your pedals to assemble them onto a pedal board. And if by chance you happen to be missing a few things that you need, luckily he's in the Guitar Sanctuary, Texas's premier guitar shop, and has everything from budget to boutique. You can buy whatever sorts of pedals you need, and then you can give them all to Brian to assemble onto your beautiful pedal board. Head over to theguitarsanctuary.com. You can check out their offerings, or you can schedule a consultation or get a quote from Brian. Secondly, I would like to talk to you about our new friends to the podcast that were old friends of the podcast, but had taken a few-week break. We want to welcome back our friends over at Neural DSP. And I want to firstly announce with Neural DSP, one of the coolest things that has happened in the time that we've been away is they have lowered the price of the Quad Cortex to $16.99 in the US. And so that makes it extremely affordable for what it is. It is competing directly with some really, really heavy duty hitters out there, and it is absolutely killing it. And one of the cool things that they just released was the Cortex Control, the editor that you can now use on your desktop, which is extremely cool, really, really helpful as far as workflow is concerned. If you're using your Quad Cortex for the studio, you're using it just to make some quick tracks. I really love it. I know this is something that they had been talking about for a long time, that all of us fans of the QC have been waiting for. So do check out the Quad Cortex, and you can get a free plug-in purchase when you buy a Quad Cortex right now. So that means you can get any of those plugins for free. And they also have their brand new Mateus Asato archetype out there for plugins, which is an absolutely cool thing. You can check out the video on their website. And for our listeners, they are offering a discount code of 30% off any plugin of your choosing over on Neural DSP's website. Use the coupon code Chairmen, get 30% off over on ndsp.co/chairman if you want to go directly to it, or you can just go to the Neural DSP site, get the whatever plugin you want, and then add the coupon code Chairman. Lastly, I want to talk to you about Sweetwater Gear Exchange. Our friends over at Sweetwater have a very cool used gear program where you can buy and sell your used gear. And the coolest part about it is you don't have to pay a fee like you normally would on most other sites if you want to keep all of your earnings on a Sweetwater gift card. If you're like me and you're saving up for something cool at Sweetwater, you can take all those earnings, accumulate them, and then redeem them on the thing that you actually want and don't have to lose any of that money to fees. Check them out over on sweetwater.com/used, and I'll turn it back over to Brian for us to continue going through some of these pedalboard picks from Music Radar as the best pedalboards of 2023.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the amazing sponsors. We appreciate you guys so much. Our next number 5 is a Harley Benton SpaceShip 40.
It sounds expensive.
It does. At first, Harley, when I first heard Harley, I was like motorcycle, but it's definitely not Harley Davidson.
It's the Harley of pedalboards.
It kind of is. It's like a chopper. But I'll looking through it gives off first impressions a Pedaltrain type vibe, obviously.
Yeah, very, very similar to a Pedaltrain.
Very, very. I'm not sure what the if it's a plastic on the side or if it's a metal. Reasons to buy is cheap but strong.
It says
Adjustable height
aluminum
feet
on the specs there.
Oh, is it construction? Okay, aluminum. Great. Soft case included. Power supply.
Pretty low
It would
weight
be
as well.
interesting. Yeah, it's very low weight. I'm curious the height. Like, it says you can adjust the height, which is interesting. Frame has carpet-like covering, and you can use your Pedaltrain provided Velcro to go with it. Just kidding. Soft case included. Won't outlast pricier models, which is their reason to avoid. I've never seen one of these before. Have you guys?
No.
I've seen pictures. I've never seen one in the shop. But I mean, at 1.2 kilos weight wise, that's pretty good for a board that big. My biggest con is from one of the things you said. I can't really see it on the photo, but one of the things you said is carpet-like material on top. That's a big red flag for me. As
carpet-like.
Well, as a builder, that stuff, the first thing I think about previous experience, I think really old Gator cases had something like this. I'm trying to think of some other boards that had it, but when it comes with this included carpet thing, it takes about 4 or 5, putting a pedal down and taking it back up, and this stuff just starts to pull apart, and your pedals get looser and looser as you put them down with Velcro. So that stuff, the first thing I would do probably out of the box if I got this board was remove that and put down some Velcro, some looped Velcro, because I just don't trust that carpety type material. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, well, but it's a carpet-like covering. It's like meat flavored, meat-like flavoring.
Meat flavored vegetables.
Yeah, so this is the impossible pedal board.
The impossible pedal board. I like that.
Height adjustable is kind of cool, though. I mean, you don't really need that back panel that Pedaltrain offers. And so height adjustable as a feature is, I mean, it's kind of cool. You could remove the feet entirely, and you could probably make it a flat style board if you needed that. The weight, I know I've said that a couple times, is a good thing. Still, does
it could
gaps.
Also be a red flag though, and that like the material is so cheap.
Well, I'm just thinking half the frame that Pedaltrain has is not there, which would allow them to get the weight down. That's what I'm assuming. But again, I've never had this board in the past.
My initial red flag looking at it, and it's one thing I like about the Pedaltrain and the creation elevation boards and those kind of things, is that because it has something on the back side, if you step in between, this foot area, say you're stepping on a Big Sky, or you're stepping on your 8th favorite overdrive pedal that you have on your board, is the board gonna bend?
I think we lost you, Brian.
I got him.
You got me?
Oh, I hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. As I was saying, like between the feet, when you step on the board right here, is it going to bend? How many times do you step on this spot because it's your favorite overdrive, whatever that you want to add, or your boost? Is it going to bend? How often? How long is the longevity of the board when it has this type of design? Because this panel, I mean, looking at the rail, it almost looks like it's like an aluminum tube. I can't really tell. Its construction is aluminum, so that's a big factor. Even though the price is probably cheap, I mean, it's saying it's maybe. It looks like they've also maybe they don't have a link anymore.
Yeah, just to clarify that Harley Benton is not a subsidiary of Harley Davidson. It is part of Thomann, which is sort of like. I'm not saying that they're the Guitar Center of Europe because they're like, constantly in bankruptcy like Guitar Center, but just like sort of how ubiquitous they are. It's probably the largest retailer. Let's be more generous with them, a little bit more charitable, and say they're the Sweetwater of Europe.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's their house brand.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I've never, there's always just things a factor that kind of, will be the longevity. I don't even know what the price is. I couldn't find one on the link.
Yeah.
Pull up
we can assume it's affordable though.
You assume it's affordable.
It says it's affordable. So moving on, number 6 is a Warwick RockBoard. RockBoard.
If you want to rock, man, don't even bother with anything else.
Listen, if you need to be able to get some cables through, you got the options.
It's made out of 100% granite.
And I've actually seen their power modules before. I've had one board come through. Our owner of the shop needed a really tiny board, compact setup, and was like, "Hey, I have this. Can we try it?" And it is very solid. If you can see, well, on the other photo, they have this support bar that mimics basically the end panels. It's very rugged, very solid. It's a little difficult to route on cable management, like the way we would do routing. Just because on the other side, and they don't show an internal photo of it, is
that bar solid in the middle?
It's not solid. It's like the monoboards where they're all, it's flat on the other side, but the solid strip between isn't at least an inch. It's shorter. So excuse me. So when you do anchors or anything or cable management, your anchor tab, because it's white, is showing on the top side. And some people don't care. Some people, it's whatever. It gets a little tricky. But the problem is this bar right here in the middle, the support bar is, at least the version I had, was solid. They've updated it since. So you have to get real creative with routing. But overall board, it's a solid board. The modules are cool. MIDI in and out, 1/4 inch power.
The modules are great.
Issues. Yeah, they're a great board. I've seen people put them on Pedaltrain boards.
Yeah.
It's a solid board. I'm curious if you guys have ever seen these, in person, or have ever worked on them too.
I have with the modules. The modules I've seen more than the pedal boards. I've done similar things where I've had guys get the Warwick modules and put them on a creation elevation board or on top of a flat board, and the modules they seem to be quite well done and well thought through, and some good variations on them. I've maybe had one of these actual rock boards, but to be fair, my customers tend to not want to rock. They are more into the chicken picking, so I mean, that makes sense. As soon as I get an AC/DC cover band, this is probably the board they're coming in with.
Right.
So but yeah, I think overall this is actually a great board. And star rating wise, according to the article, this one, it looks like it has a straight 4, where of all the other ones I think have had a 4.5 or up. And I would put this so far much higher than the other options because of the available modules and good construction. The holes aren't gigantic, so pedal placement shouldn't really be a huge issue. My only concern, Brian, I don't know if you remember this from the ones that you've done, is can you fit standard pancakes and right angle MIDI and all that through the hole sizes that they've provided on this?
Obviously the pancakes, yes, the pancakes will fit right angle straight plugs. Excuse me. The one that was a little tricky, I think, was the Switchcraft MIDI plugs or the Creator-Tone MIDI connectors. With the Switchcraft, I take off the housing on the outside. I'll put it through, and then
a temple board as well.
Yeah, it's like that same concept of a temple board where you kind of have to you have to fit just the MIDI connector part and then attach the sides and the river boot. So from what I can remember, and I've only done one of these, I would say that was probably the only thing I had that was a little tricky.
There's a cool video of Robert Bradshaw actually building on one of these.
Really?
That I don't think he produced. I think it's done through the shop that he shares his space with at Rocklet. I think it's called Tone Tailors.
Okay.
But it's a good video to show what these are capable of. So I would agree with everything on this one, but I have to say, just looking forward to the next one, I'm starting to lose hope on this one. But I think we should turn it over to Grant first, though, to talk about a few more of our amazing sponsors before we finish out with the final few pedalboard picks.
For sure.
Love to. I'm going to start this off by mentioning a company that I know does great pedalboards, which is monocreators.com. They have an angled board, and I've talked about this before. You will not get me to stop. They have an angled board that has a lot of space underneath for junctions, patch bass, power, pedals that you don't need to hit, all sorts of stuff. And as well, Mono is my favorite company for soft bags, whether it's for your guitar, your pedal board, double gig bags, their backpacks. Their stuff just simply lasts for ages, and the quality is they're at the top of their game as far as building quality products. They recently came out with power supplies and a few more accessories, which are great, and they're definitely worth checking out at monocreators.com. You can also use the code Chairmen, and you can get 10% off your order at monocreators.com. I also want to tell you guys about Bestronix at btpa.com. If you need any additional accessories, we talked about this with your Pedaltrain. If you want some, customized side panel mounts with connections, or you need plugs, cable, any accessories for your pedal board or rack, BTPA is the place to go. So go check them out and use the code DACHAIRS, DACHAIRS, and you will also be able to get 10% off your order. Lastly, I want to tell you guys about Stringjoy. They are the Netflix of guitar strings. These are made in Nashville, USA, not the other Nashville you were thinking of. They are made in USA, and you can basically get subscriptions. You can buy single packs just like you would from any other store, or you can get the delivery automated. Whole bunch of different gauges, material types. Bass, electric, they've got you covered at stringjoy.com. And you can also use the code BOARDS, BOARDS, to get 10% off of your single pack, your subscription, whatever you want to do. Check them out at stringjoy.com. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you so much. All right. So
I'm just wondering where that other Nashville is.
I just wanted to leave it out there, and I'm sure we'll get some comments on all the different Nashvilles around the globe.
Yeah.
A lot of Nashvilles.
That's what I'm hoping for. Yep.
Well, we'll finish up. There's only a couple left. We'll kind of go through these a little bit quicker. The next is number 7 is the Boss BCB 90X. Gotta say, I don't have experience with this board. I have experience with the Boss BCB 1000.
Is that roughly 10 times bigger than this one?
It's actually, I think, the same size. It's just constructed. It's constructed a lot like the RockBoard, but it's in like a suitcase factor. So if you've seen boards, and maybe when you guys are chatting, I'll find one. I did a couple boards like this with Seal, where we did some BCB boards, and I was a little hesitant at first to do this board. But the construction of those boards were really good, where these ones are really just, it's all plastic, like the whole
it's just like it looks like a piece of a Pelican case with like jacks built into it for power and stuff like that. So it's all daisy chain power. This is kind of like the old school Boss pedal boards, like the really early Boss pedal boards that used to be around in the 80s. It's kind of like a evolved version of that, but yeah.
And looking at the bottom, I can see these holes right here. You can actually pop this off, and it's all like hollowed out, so you could run like a cable like from the right side all the way to the left side, or power, or vice versa. But the problem with these boards, and I would love to hear you guys' input, is that you're so limited on how much you can fit, because it's lower, so like there's a lip, so certain cable, like you lose some space on the edges, because your cabling can't go past the lip, which is on normal kind of things, but you just kind of get locked into certain space. Like this takes up a lot of space, this takes a lot of space, you can't really fit much here. It just kind of gets into things you have to figure out. Can all my pedals fit in here, and can I still plug in if you don't want to use a module? So there's some definitely thought out things you got to think of before going with this route. What about you guys?
It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember this, the Diego boards. Speaking of carpeted boards, do you guys remember those from back in the day? It was a similar idea, but it had that lip around the edge, and they were quite popular in Sydney when we started Goodwood, and they just drove me crazy. Like all of the input and output pedals, I had to raise up on blocks so that the jacks would clear. And as far as, overlooking some pretty common, straightforward things about using pedals, I feel like that's top of the list. the other thing that just drives me crazy is the whole top section. It's just like, it's a lesson in how to make space unusable. Like, why did you put the handle encroaching in on the pedal board space when you could have just done a latching handle or, spring-loaded handle that doesn't do any of that? I mean, obviously it's a lot to do with construction costs and all that, but I think, again, this would be a great board if you don't have to make use of the space in an efficient way. If you had 6 Boss pedals and you could put them across the front row, I'm sure this board would be perfect for you. But if you need to make the most and you want to grow into a board and add more effects, I think you'll very quickly get frustrated with the poor use of space in the most inconvenient spots possible.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Mason?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. I mean, I think it's just I don't think that there's much. This is the most unremarkable pedal board we've seen so far.
But it's number 7, Mason.
Number seven. Well, let's. I'm curious to see if
4
number
stars
8 is redeeming.
Oh yeah,
number 8.
Yeah,
the Voodoo Lab Dingbat medium pedal board. If you're familiar with this one, at least I kind of refer this to kind of like the mono board in a way.
Yeah, it's real similar to that, or the rock
similar.
board, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. A little less of the slots, which I will say
modules.
Not modules. I will say I've done one board on this, and it was really easy to mount, like a underfacer on the output, on the input output side of it, to fit some stuff in. It's very much like the same type of space underneath, where obviously you have to be very logical, and if you're going to put a pedal underneath or a power supply, they have some power supply courtesy cutouts for you to do an input, and they have like the old Voodoo Lab where they have that courtesy. What is it? What's the output? Is there a technical term for just an output?
The IEC output.
The IEC output, yeah. So like it caters to that board or any other boards you have. Obviously, mounting, you have to get a little more particular about it. But overall, I've seen these before. As you can see in the photo, the larger ones have more cutouts for power supply, assembly spots. But have you guys ever worked with these ones?
I don't think I've done a dingbat board. I'm trying to remember.
I haven't, but I think that I have no objections to them. I think it's well built. Yeah. They talk about the construction being American 6061 T6 aircraft grade aluminum. An aside is that all aluminum for this sort of purpose is all aircraft aluminum. So it's not it's not like a special.
It's marketing.
Special. Yeah, I did one of these in the very beginning of my board building days before I got on a certain aesthetic type of platform, so stuff that I was more comfortable with. But I've seen these come up through. It's very interesting because they have a series with this dingbat where actually you can attach their Voodoo Lab switcher to the front of it or something, which is very interesting, and it hangs off the front, but all the cabling goes underneath. It's a very interesting concept. It's it's not a horrible number 8, I will say.
Well, I feel like it should be further up the list. Do you remember, Brian, if this one had, the only thing I'm seeing that I'm kind of concerned about with this one is I don't see from the photos, I could be wrong, any support underneath. And I'm just curious what the flex is like, because it also looks like it has some lips on the side that would help strength.
Yeah, it has bends on the side. There's no support in the middle that I can remember. Maybe their larger one has one.
It probably doesn't need it. It looks like it's pretty thick.
Yeah. It's definitely not. Yeah, it's thick. Moving on to number 9.
Oh boy, Brian, why don't you take the charge on this one? Why don't you just go for it, Brian?
Not my most favorite. Not my most favorite.
For those listening, do you want to give a hint as to what we're talking about? They might already have guessed.
They probably have. I talk about I have videos of how to remove these plates. It is a Tempo audio pedal board. I'm going to be honest. When the pedal boards first came out, everyone was so shocked about them because of the Tempo plates, and it was such a great design. And it is a great design. I got to give it to them. Their modules are really cool. They've done some collaborations with Matthews Effects on summing, XLR, all these different modules and stuff. It's a really cool idea. There's just some flaws. I've had mine in the past. I had it for maybe 3 weeks. And then the moment I decided to sell it was when I went to my car, and I live in Texas. So, 110 whatever degree. And I don't usually say leave gear in the car, but I definitely left my board in the car. Left my board in the car and went in for lunch and came out and went to go play somewhere. And when I pulled my board out, all my pedals fell off. So, and it was because I had all the tempo plates. And it literally everything fell off. And this was like before I was really building for people. And I was just like, what? Like I was in such a pinch that it just gave me such like a disappointing kind of thing. The hardest thing about the board I come to realize is when you start doing the temple plates, the screw on the backside starts interfering with where you can do routing. Once, like if you have this back row, if you have pedals along the whole back row, you get kind of screwed on how you're going to mount the power supply unless you use dual lock. And I had it break on one person. After I built the board, a bunch of the pedals fell off, and that was my deciding factor that I was never going to build on them. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts after that.
Well, I know we're coming up on time here, so I'll give my my concise thoughts here. I think the idea is great, like what you said, Brian. On paper, I think these boards are awesome, and any setup I do with them, I try and convince the customer to go with Velcro or dual lock rather than using the plates. The modules are, again, well thought out. They could probably be done a little bit better, but my biggest thing with the modules is the screws tend to strip. The threads are not awesome, but it's a lightweight board. I think it does have a place in the industry. It's probably just not the best for anyone that's going to be touring or be quite hard on it. I'll leave it at that. I think I think it's a deserved spot at number 9. But I wouldn't put it much higher than that. Mason?
I've never built anything on them, so I actually don't have any sense or commentary on that. But I think aesthetically, the design wise, it's cool looking.
Nice.
Yeah. Nothing. I can't speak to it otherwise. But the module thing, I would say too. I haven't looked at the circuits of them, but I think like as far as expandability, I think I think it's cool. I think like kind of like how RockBoard is done. They have a lot of cool stuff you can add to the pedalboard to accessorize it.
Yeah. All right. We'll go through these last two real quick. The Diodario XPND pedalboard.
Okay. Yeah. This is the most embarrassing one I think on the list.
Yeah. So
I love
like
Diodario. I love Diodario. This one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's imagine if you're listening. Imagine like a kind of angled Pedaltrain and Nano size board, but with a hitch where you can actually, from the XP, there I guess they're trying to make it sound like expand, because you can actually you can widen the board or whatever,
like an accordion.
Accordion, yes, it's an accordion Diodario board.
Accordion board.
That's a great reference, actually. It's very much like
it's ideal for people that like change.
Very, very interesting.
And not the coins. We're talking people that like, yes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this could be your New Year's resolution board.
I mean, again, I feel like I'll give my quick thoughts because I think it would be cool to finish with what our top 3 would be in the last few minutes we have. But I don't like this board, but I can't really give you an awesome reason why. Something about it irks me. I feel like when it's in its smallest position, you are always going to be paying for the weight of 2 pedal boards in one. Mm-hmm. If weight isn't your biggest concern, because it is small, I'll try and play devil's advocate, then you can expand it in the future. I mean, yeah, I guess I can't really put into words why I don't like it. So maybe I should just like it, but I just would never buy it. It doesn't look like you can mount anything underneath because of the way it's constructed. So you have an angled board, but you can't make use of the angled board. By the looks of it, I could be wrong. I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong there, but I'll quit while I'm behind, guys. Mason, I'll throw it to you.
I don't have anything really to say about it. I mean, it just seems like you'd have to have the board so shoddily put together to make for it to advantage you to be able to then just press the button and pull out the accordion and be like, now I can fit 5 more pedals, but I need to now completely, rework my power cables and my audio cables. Like, you'd have to have it so like sloppily put together where it wouldn't make any difference for you to just add another foot to your pedal board out of nowhere to put on more pedals. So I don't know.
And I assume power has to go on top. Like, I don't think if you can't put anything underneath, then power has to go on top.
Let me see.
I don't know.
Let me see if there's anything. Okay, so that's what it looks like. And they use like micro pedals. So so it slides out. It kind of looks like there's
might be room underneath. I could be wrong.
There's a video about it.
And they do have multiple sizes. They do have much bigger versions than the one that you're seeing on screen. Right now on screen, Brian said it's kind of a nano, but they do have, 4 rail versions that are much deeper as well.
So power doesn't need to be on top.
Doesn't look like it. But moving on real quick, Fender Professional Pedalboard. Well, I'll quickly go through this. I did this board. I just actually did a Tone Master Pro setup with this. Overall, it's very solid. It's a very solid. Reminds me of the RockBoard mono type of strength of the board. 2 cons I have to it is because it's not power code or anything. When you're pulling off, like if you do Velcro or anything, or even hook and loop, a lot of the residue gets stuck and it's very hard to pull off. Okay. And all these slits right here are a pain. So they're not very logical for routing. That someone asked me, I really want to get one of these. How'd you route around these? And I was like, I just put anchors in between them just because. Like,
so do you think that this is more of an aesthetic, or you think there's a reason for those?
I've seen videos of them when they debuted this board. They literally tied zip ties to these, like in the video.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
So it's a poorly thought out way of doing cable management.
The slants are kind of odd. I can understand maybe if they had a better reason. From what I could. Also, my only downside to this is the bracket on the back of this that holds the power supply in. Unless it's the full size power supply, the bracket doesn't hold the power in very well. And they include these little like rubber pads to help, but they don't really help. And I know it's new on the market, so you probably guys don't have a lot of experience. But that I just built one like last week.
Yeah, yours look beautiful, by the way. You should check out Brian's Instagram if you want to see it. But I mean, it looks like it's totally solid. I don't know that I'd have like anything like really bad to say about it. As far as the construction is concerned, I think it looks fine to me. I don't know. I wouldn't be like something that I probably would choose for myself, but I don't think that like somebody would be disadvantaged by using it or anything like that.
I have one. The one on the screen, I have one. That's the board I'm currently using just because it's what I have around up here in Canada. And I would agree with Brian's cons. The only extra con I will add, although I do like the board overall, so take it in that kind of context, but the front rubber feet are kind of like a U-channel rubber foot. They fall off pretty quick. Mine are both gone, and I don't know where they are. So the foot thing is kind of annoying, but overall, I would say it should be probably a little higher up on the list in comparison to what we've seen. But yeah, that would be my thing.
Well, that was their top 11 pedalboard picks for 2023. I know we have to finish up. Mason's got to get on with his day, and so do we. But any final thoughts? What is your top, let's say top 2 recommended that you would recommend if someone's starting out or they're looking for a new platform? Grant?
I would say if you're looking to hold on to it for a while and stay flexible, I really enjoy, and I often recommend the creation stuff. I really like the Aero board, which is kind of like a hybrid flat board is how I talk about it. Basically a flat board, but you can mount low profile power supplies underneath. It's lightweight. So that would be one of my favorites. Obviously the Vertex ones, if you are into a riser style board, and again, I have a little bit of a crush on Pelican. So I really love that Mason's boards slot right into the Pelicans. Again, that means they're going to be lightweight. So I would probably go with those 2 as kind of my top 2. If you're into the angled thing, again, I talk about this all the time, but I really enjoy the mono ones just because I love how much I love mounting things underneath an angled board. And I think that's my biggest pro. Rather than having the board on the angle, I just love being able to mount stuff underneath. And so the mono would be my choice for angled style boards. So that'd be kind of where I think I would.
There.
What's that?
For the angling crowd.
Yes, you can find them at the Base Pro Shop, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the United Anglers. I would say, if you're really new to pedal boards and you're just starting out, although I'd love to be able to recommend my own, I do think probably like something like the Pedaltrain is probably more sensible, because you'll start to get a sense of what pedals you like, and they're easy to route, and you can keep that power supply underneath and kind of have everything just kind of ready to go, ready to plug and play, and I think probably the next evolution would be something more like the Dingbat, the Warwick, the Fender, and then, when you're ready to build like a real pro rig, then you could upgrade to something like, what we make it with the Vertex pedal boards. But I think realistically, probably that sequence makes the most sense depending on kind of where you are in your pedal board journey.
Yeah. I agree completely with you to wrap it up. I think those boards, especially the Pedaltrain, the Dingbat, the Fender, they're all fantastic board platforms to start with, to figure out what you want, because boards are always changing, setups are always changing. And when you start ordering custom sized flat boards and bridges, or you're getting, the Vertex boards, they're all fantastic boards. They're great boards, and you have to, design out how you want the board to be and the longevity of the board. So starting out with me, I started out with a Nova 18 for the longest time, just figuring out what I liked from Pedaltrain and my pedals. So that's what I would say. Just take the time, figure out what you like, do the research, and hit up Facebook Marketplace, find something to start off with, and just you never go wrong with that.
Or just cut a sheet of plywood. Just put a sheet of plywood on the ground. That's what I did when I started.
I did that I did it with hook and loop Velcro for the longest time, and it worked out great. But we'll all just jump back in the Miata on our way to Tone Town. Grant's in his, what did you say, sheep?
I got my sheepskin seat cover. Yeah.
Great. Well, I got a Snuggie on. That's what I'm gonna be wearing.
Okay. All right.
I'm not sure if Mason has anything. But we'll jump back in, and until next time, have a great weekend.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a great week, guys. See you.